डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन युनिव्हर्सिटी.
Hello friends, Namaskar. This is Dr. Jaini Shah. I'm an assistant professor of English at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, and I welcome you all to this video lecture series that the university is recording for our new syllabus of SYBA in English literature. Today I'm here with the short story that is called The Lost Child. It is written by Mulkraj Anand. Friends, it's a part of your paper number 4, that is study of short stories, and the unit number is 11, which is entitled as The Lost Child. Now this story is a very simply written story written in English by an Indian author, and I guarantee you that it is going to take you back to your childhood and you really enjoy reading the story entirely. So moving further, I would like to start with a brief introduction of our author for the day. You can see here on the right hand side is a portrait of Mulkraj Anand. He was born in the year 1905 and he passed away in the year 2004, that is very recently. And The Lost Child is a collection of short stories. It was published in the year 1934, that is pre-independence era, and the writer belongs to pre-independence era, and most of the writings that are credited to Mulkraj Anand, they talk about Indianness on the whole. So let us just begin. Mulkraj Anand is one of the pioneers of Indian English literature. Friends, there are 3 founding fathers of Indian English literature. And what do we understand by the term Indian English literature? It basically means that Indian writers whose origin, the country of origin is India, when they write in English language, their literature is termed as Indian English literature. So there were 3 founding fathers, namely R.K. Narayan, Mulkraj Anand and Raja Rao. So one of them is Mulkraj Anand, and we are going to study a story that is written by him. So he was active in Indian independence movement, and he has been awarded with the prestigious awards such as Padma Bhushan and International Peace Prize as well. So 1930s was peak of his writing career. He has produced many novels, short stories, even novels such as Untouchable, Coolie are so important that he has been regarded as Indian Charles Dickens, or Charles Dickens of India, because Charles Dickens wrote about novels which are centered on boys, childhood, orphan boys, and how they would grow with the passing years and how they would find their ways. So that is what Charles Dickens used to write, and similar texture we find in Mulkraj Anand's works as well. So he wrote on Indian caste system, Indian characters. His writings were more focused on poorer castes, downtrodden classes, local settings, etc. His first novel, Untouchable, was published in the year 1935, and that earned him the reputation of social commentator as India's Charles Dickens. Moving further, novels such as Coolie, Two Lives and a Bird, The Sword and the Sickle, The Big Heart, The Road, Across the Black Waters are some of his notable works. As I mentioned, The Lost Child and Other Stories is a collection of 13 short stories, and The Lost Child is one of the stories of the collection. And he talks about the settings are mostly rural India. He talks about the village life of Indians, and kids, mostly children, are the protagonist of his works. He uses Hindi words to retain Indian flavor. He does not give us the translation of peculiar Indian words which are familiar to Indian people, Indian culture. such as gulmohar, right? A flower, gulmohar. He does not provide any English name for the flower. Rasgulla, the very famous sweet, he does not provide any translation to for other readers to understand what do we mean by rasgulla. Barfi, jalebi, etc. So he uses, since this is Indian English literature, he retains certain words of India which are very peculiar to Indian people and Indian culture, and that is what makes his writings more relatable to Indian audience, right? Moving further, now here is a brief information that what The Lost Child is all about. It is a story about a little child who is a victim of an unfortunate event. He loses contact with his loved ones. He loses himself in a fair where he is visited with his parents. But ultimately, we find out that this is a story of a child's love and affection for his own parents. It takes us into the whole psychological view. It makes us feel that what if we as children would have lost in a fair, you know, what kind of suffering, what kind of struggle we would have to go through, because we don't know anyone and we feel utterly helpless, because our only guardians, our only protectors, our only parents who are, we are not able to find them, and we are totally lost in the crowd of unknown people. So what a child goes through is beautifully narrated in this piece of writing, and we are going to have a look at it. So the summary of the story, it goes like, it was a season of spring. So in India we have a culture of celebrating seasons, and spring is a season of love. It is a season of harvest where farmers, in villages are happy to have their crop, and their hard work is paid off in the season of spring. So springs are normally celebrated in the villages of India with fair, which we call it as mela, right? मेला अरेंज होता है विलेजेस में, जहाँ पे सेलिब्रेशन होता है स्प्रिंग सीजन का, हार्वेस्ट का, क्रॉप का. So the people are in gaiety, humorous mood. They are all colorfully dressed. They are all decked up. They are in jovial mood, and they are enjoying the fair and excited. Now the description starts that an excited and happy child walked to the fair along with his parents. So we are not told the exact age of the child, but when we understand the narration of the story, we come to know that the child must be around, say, 6 or 7 years old, because he's fascinated by the fair and by the products that are sold over there. So the boy is attracted to the stalls of toys and sweets. The child wants his favorite barfi. He is fascinated by looking at the rasgullas and the jalebis and the barfis, and he's tempted to have them all. He's tempted, he's fascinated, he's attracted by the colorful toys, by the sweets, by the beautiful garlands of gulmohar. He is attracted to the dragonflies, to the butterflies that are flying around the mustard fields. He's attracted with the yellow blooming mustard fields, and he wishes to buy the gulmohar garland. Then he is fascinated by the colorful balloons, which are in a variety of colors such as red, green, blue, purple, etc. So the colorful things are so unique to the child's senses that he is tempted by the smell, by the vision, by the by his sensory organs are all excited with having a view of so many colorful things in front of his small eyes, and he is amused, we can use the word amused, and he's amazed by the variety of things, different things, colorful things that are there in front of him, which he does not get to see on day to day basis, which he gets to see in the fair. So he is all excited. Then he sees a snake charmer, and the child is excited. But what happens over here is that the child has different demands, like any normal child would have. He wants to buy toys, he wants to buy sweets, he wants to have the garland of flowers. He also wants to listen to the music of the snake charmer that he's piping out. Now, there is a description of his parents as well. His father is a patriarchal father. He's portrayed as a tyrant, and okay, he's portrayed as a tyrant, as a strict disciplinarian who wants to teach a child the importance of things in his life. Now, of course, the child is fascinated by all the things, but it is not practically possible for every parent to buy all the things that the child wants, because it is very important for parents also to teach their children the importance of money, also the importance of prioritizing things in life from their early childhood. So here parents are portrayed as typical village middle class parents who do not want to succumb to their child's needs. Okay, so they restrict him from each and everything, from buying sweets, from having the garland, from buying the toys, etc., etc. But then the child decides, then there is a round big swing roundabout that he is attracted to, and now he has decided, he makes a bold request that okay, I want to sit in the swing and you cannot refuse that. But what happens before he is about to make the request? What happens is, let's see, the child watched them intently and then he made a bold request. I want to go on the roundabout. Please, father, please, mother. There was no reply. So all this while, these three people, parents and the child, were along. They were walking along with each other, and they were in a safe distance for them. The parents would keep an eye on the child, and the child knew that I am in a safe zone. My parents are watching me. They are attending to me. Now what happens? There was no reply when he made a request that I want to go on the roundabout. Please let me go. Please, father. Please, mother. There was no reply. To his surprise, he turned around to look at his parents. They were not there ahead of him. He turned to look on either side. They were not there also. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. So now begins, if you go to the story, to the primary source of the story, and you read the story, from here Mulk Raj Anand begins the agony of a child, what a child feels, what a child goes through, and at the end we tend to empathize as well as sympathize with a child. What happens when a child is unable to find his parents and he gets lost in the fair? He looked around, they were not there. He looked ahead of him, they were not there. He looked back, they were not there. He looked on either sides, they were not there. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear. Mother, father. Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. He was panic-stricken. He ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither in all directions, knowing not where to go. Mother, father, he wailed, he cried deeply, he shrieked to the top of his voice, and his yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. So this is what, look at the sequence of words, of sentences, of adjectives that author, that Mulkraj Anand is using over here to describe a child's agony. Now the child realized that he was completely lost in the fair. He was unable to find his parents. His first emotions were crying and shouting out for his parents, and he felt that now there is nothing he can do to find his parents. He got terrified, but suddenly a kind-hearted man took him up in his arms and consoled the bitterly weeping child. Now, there is also a description of a temple where the crowd is, it is all jostling each other. The child goes through the trampling foot of the crowd, and he is jostled here and there because there are tall men, there are tall people. From a child's point of view, from a child's vision, there are people around him and he is unable to find his parents. So in the meantime, there is a kind-hearted man who hears the child cry, and he looks at him and he finds out that, okay, this child is lost. He has lost someone, and so he lifts him up in his arms and he consoles the weeping child. Now he asks the child that whose baby are you and where are your parents? But this child is unable to answer because he doesn't know where are his parents, and just giving names would not make him meet his parents. So now what happens? The man, in order to console the child, he finds out that, okay, we are in a fair and there are so many things that would attract the crying child. So let me take him to the sweet shop, let me take him to the garland owner, let me take him to the snake charmer, let me take him to the swing, and he would be busy doing all these activities. He would be busy playing with the toys, and meanwhile I'll find out where his parents are. But what happens on the contrary is that the child refuses everything that he wanted when his parents were refusing that. So the child wanted all these things, but now since his parents are lost, he is lost, he is not able to find his parents. What this man is offering, the child is refusing all of that, because now what he wants is not sweet, the different varieties of sweets, or the balloons, or the swings, or the watching the snake, or the garland of flowers, but he only wants his parents, he only wants his father, he only wants his mother. So the child refused, and the child sobbed that I want my father, I want my mother. Now let us go to the analysis of the story. Now, if you have noticed by now that the story is entitled The Lost Child, so we know that the protagonist of the story, or the prime character of the story, is the child. But there is a very interesting thing also, that there are a few characters, only 4 characters are there in the story: the child, the father, the mother, and the man who is helping the child. But no character is given a name. So we don't know the names of the characters. We don't even know the name of the child. He is just addressed as a child throughout the story. The reason why Mulkraj Anand has done this is because he wanted to portray universality through the stories, through the piece of writing. He has written a universal story which is applicable throughout the universe. Take any country and put this situation in that country. Forget about a village in India. Take, for example, a metro city of India, and there is a fair, or there is a busy marketplace, and a small child he is lost, and he is unable to find his parents. So what would his reaction be? It would be exactly the same. Take for example any other country, take for example UK. There is a small child who has visited a big marketplace with his parents, and suddenly he gets lost, he is unable to find his parents. What would his reaction be? It would none other be than this. So the child is the representative of the universal childhood, and the parents are the true advocates of universal paternity, disciplining the child. No parent would like to succumb to each and every demand that a child makes, because that would spoil the child. For he would then, when he grows up, he would want that each and every demands of his would be satisfied, which is not the case, which is not the reality always. So the parents are the universal spokesperson for parenthood, and the child is the universal spokesperson for the childhood experiences that every child goes through. But despite all checks and restrictions, nothing is of greater importance in the life than the bond of true relationship between a child and his parents. So ultimately, this is a story of true love and affection that a child has for his parents, and the parents have for their child, because they do not want to spoil their children. They want their children to become good human beings. Okay. The Lost Child is all about thrilling as well as frightful experiences. So the story begins with a thrill that the child is experiencing by watching all the varieties in a fair, and then it turns out into a frightful experience of crying and weeping and of agony, of pain, of getting separated with his parents. The child is full of excitement, enthusiasm and curiosity at first. He is very sensitive about the outside world and gets attracted towards everything that comes in his way. But as events change for bad, he finds out that he is agonized, and now he is no more interested in the beautiful things that he was interested in earlier. So afterwards we come to know an undercurrent of disappointment, resentment and frustration that runs in the heart of the child. And suppressing all his fears and anticipations, he makes a bold request to get on the ride, but he looks back and he does not find anyone. So he knows that my demands are not being satisfied, they are refused, they are being restricted. But then he makes up his mind that, okay, you have refused me sweets, you have refused me toys, you have refused me flowers, you have refused me watching a snake charmer, but I'm going to make sure that I take a ride in a roundabout swing. So he's very confident and he makes a bold request that I want to sit in a swing. But unfortunately, that is the time he realizes that he has been separated from his parents, and then he forgets totally about all these things, because now what he wants is nothing but his parents. So all of a sudden these things lose all significance for the child, because for him what is the most important thing is being in protection of his parents. So the language of the story is very rich. It is a short piece of writing which you can read in one sitting, which you can easily understand. You don't need to use dictionary for looking up the meanings. It is told in such a way that you can, if you belong to a village, if you have been fortunate enough to have spent some years in the village and living the village life, you would totally relate to the piece of writing, because it takes you back to the village atmosphere, to the village setting, as well as it takes you back to your childhood. And if you have experienced a similar kind of event in your life as a child, then it is surely going to make you empathize with the child. And the writer has a deep insight in the psychology of the child. The power of the story lies in the skillful narration of joys and expectations, the tender feelings and excitements, and the fears and misapprehensions of the child's mind. A small child goes through so many variety of experiences in this one event. The child at the end of the story wins all the sympathy of the readers when his desires and demands remain unfulfilled, and in the end he loses his parents too. So the story ends with this lines said by the child: I want my father, I want my mother. I would just like to read a piece of lines, some lines from the story, and it is the ending of the story as well. So the man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. Listen to that nice music, child, he pleaded, but the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double-pitched strain, I want my mother, I want my father. The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. Would you like a rainbow-colored balloon? He persuasively asked, with the hope that the child will stop crying and he will be able to ask certain questions to gauge out information about his parents. But the child turned his eyes away from the flying balloons and just sobbed, just continued crying by saying the words, I want my mother, I want my father. And this is the end of the story. Interestingly, the author has not provided us the ending in which maybe we can imagine that the child has then gave out some information, the man has been successful in persuading the child to stop crying, or there is some announcement in the fair that this child is lost, if anyone gets the child, please bring him on the stage. Or maybe his parents are also frantically searching for the child and the separated child and the parents meet. No, we are not given with any such description. The story abruptly, we feel that the story has abruptly ended with this, that I want my father, I want my mother, telling us, the readers, leaving us with that feeling that, oh my God, the child is lost and what would happen next. So this mixed feeling, it leaves us with a concern for the child. It leaves us by sympathizing as well as empathizing with a child's situation. So this is what Mulk Raj Anand has written. After this explanation, I have framed certain questions for you. You can take this exercise to check your progress, to check your understanding. The first question is, describe the characterization of the child. Narrate the child's character as well as narrate the parent's character. Then critically summarize or give critical analysis of the story, The Lost Child. And also the last question is, write a note on how Mulk Raj Anand incorporates a child's psychology. Write a note on how Mulk Raj Anand incorporates a child's psychology through the simple tale called The Lost Child. So when you take this exercise and you answer the questions, you will get a better understanding of the story. Coming to the resources, I would strongly recommend that you, since we are students of literature, we are learners of literature, we must always look up the primary source of the text, and I would recommend that you read the story, the actual story, The Lost Child, which is, if you click on the first link, if you manage to go to the URL, it will take you to the original text, The Lost Child. And the second link, second resource is, it will give you a critical analysis of the story. This is for your further reading. So That's it, friends, for this session. This was about The Lost Child, a piece of writing by Mulk Raj Anand, a part of Indian English literature. So I hope you have got a better understanding of the story and you have enjoyed this video. So I would like to conclude over here. Thank you, friends, for watching this video. See you around next time. Thank you.
स्वाध्यायः परः